Sometimes we are faced with some critical decisions in our life, in our business, in our finances, in our love life, in our health, maybe in our personal direction or purpose. And we sit with the big question, what is possible for me? What is truly possible for me so that I can lean in and give it the attention and energy, the new term, atenergy, that it seeks in order to grow it, in order for it to become real, for it to become fulfilled. So in this episode, I want to dive deep into a $30 million conscious upgrade that was recently discussed with one of my clients. Welcome to the High Performance Consciousness Podcast. My name is Matthew Paddy, and again, I will be your host for today's show. If you haven't already subscribed, then hit the subscribe button right now. If you haven't already left a review, written a review, and given some star ratings, I would greatly appreciate you doing that to increase the rankings of this podcast and also so that I can read them and get vital feedback as to what you like and what you'd like more of. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode, which is all around a $30 million conscious upgrade. So this little case study is for you to consider maybe where you're at right now, maybe where you will find yourself as a result of listening to this podcast, or maybe where you have been previously in your thinking and your decision-making process about the life or the direction of your life, the path of your business, the direction of your focus and attention and energy. So one question that I'm often asked is, how do I determine what I want? How do I know what I want can come to pass? And therefore, in asking that question, I struggle with clarity. We've all been there. We've all had the taste of doubt or the taste of lack of clarity on what you want. And here's the question to begin with. Is it the lack of clarity that is blocking you? Or is it the belief that what you truly want, what you desire to experience, is possible for you? I'll let you sit with that for a moment. Is it really a clarity conversation? Is it really the lack of clarity that you have? Or is it the underlying belief that it's possible for you to achieve, experience, and fulfill that reality? So let's dive in. And this very question did come up very, very recently with a client of mine. Very accomplished, very driven, very hardworking, very focused, very brilliant client that has the world at her fingertips. And yet, at times, feeling the weight or the burden of choice. Where do I place my attention? I have opportunities, I have ideas that I can move on, lean into, give attention and energy towards. I'm not sure which one is going to be more favorable, which one is going to lead to the promised land, lead to my desires being fulfilled. So in that struggle of having to choose is I feel stuck. I feel like I'm treading water, or I'm spending my days and spending my energy putting out fires. Maybe you can relate. So back on the question is it a lack of clarity of what you want, or is it the belief or the lack thereof that what you do want is actually possible? So in this conversation with this client, we got to the pointy end, and I pretty much just said, what financial outcome do you want? What is the big picture goal here? So that we can unpack it, we give a starting point, a reference point to start from. So the initial figure and the final figure came close and was decided upon at $30 million. $30 million net worth. And so some of you listening might think, wow, that is well outside my comfort zone. That's well outside my sphere of believability. It is all relative. You have your own figure. Everyone has their own figure. And that figure, whether it's pursued because of the searching or seeking for significance or certainty, fame, or comfort, whatever it may be, it's a lifestyle choice. So starting with one metric, let's call it the dollar value, the net worth. What does your life look like at $30 million of net worth? And so you start to engage the imagination and you start to find your edges pretty quickly on where you can conceive of and believe of that being a reality for you, that being fact as true. So as we find edges, you can start to drop the logic mind and say, well, I don't know how. I don't know how that's going to come. I don't know what my next step is. Let's just play this game to begin with. The $30 million conscious upgrade. You pick your figure. What does your life look like vibrating at when you are experiencing that level of wealth or that level of financial security? And start to paint a picture for yourself using your imagination. Where would you be living? What would you be living in? What's the size of the house or the condo or whatever it's going to be? Who are the people around you, the types of people? What are the types of conversations that make up a typical day for you? Now, here's the next question. What, if you were being interviewed, what would the depth of that conversation be about? And what I mean by that is you're being interviewed by someone that wants to unpack your genius, how you got to where you are right now at $30 million as the example, so that other people could be inspired and go about using some of your formula to help them create the same in their own life, in their own way. So the question then becomes, if you're being interviewed, then what are you wearing? What are you wearing? How are you dressed? Where are you being interviewed? And so this conversation piece here is about placing you at a destination or a point in a possible, probable, potential future reality. And you are constructing it through the use and the faculty of your imagination. How else is anything created but through our imagination? So as you're sitting there being interviewed, and you could pick someone that you admire that is in, this field, as it were, that would be interviewing you, sitting opposite you. And what are you wearing? Where are you being interviewed? And the question comes, looking back at the old self, what would you say to other people who are where you were? What advice would you give them? Write it down. Write it down. So when you go through this exercise, write your answers down, because your imagination is pulling from the field now. You are stretching your consciousness and expanding your awareness of what is potentially an outcome for you. You are expanding your awareness of what is possible based on the attention and energy you are giving to this new imagined reality. So write down what information, what strategies or lessons did you learn from the $30 million person looking back at all the journey that you've been on. There are vital clues there. Now, they might be like a macro answer. And in this one, as an example, is never take no as an answer. Never take no as an answer. That was what came out straight away. And so then you can run that thread through your current life and say, where am I taking no as an answer? Where am I placing myself second to the mind of my old self that wants to deny my potential? Where my addictive nature to the chemistry and the biology of my feelings is keeping me safe, trapped, as it were, stuck, frozen in time, experiencing and reliving day in, day out the same reality, finding it difficult to break free and break out of a mold. So The $30 million conscious upgrade is an imaginal act. It's an imaginal state. It's also a grand experiment. Because now we're not seeking time to provide clues. We're dialing into the result to give us the answers. And the result is the $30 million net worth as the example. So where are you living? What are you living in? What are the typical conversations you're having with typical types of people that are now vibrating at that same reality, at that same level of wealth? And now you're being interviewed by someone that is esteemed or that you admire. And they're asking you to reflect back on what was and to recall using timeless mechanics or physics to recall what was from your new vantage point of what is. Is this spinning you out right now? It is actually quite simple. It all comes down to a decision. That in making the decision to expand upon the potential of what you desire and to unpack it as if you are seeing it right now as a reality and giving it all the tones of reality using your 5 senses is the wake-up call the old self needs, the jolt into a new reality. Because quite often we'll say, I don't know what my future looks like because it hasn't been created yet. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, saying, where I'm going to be living, or what I'm going to be earning, or who I'm going to be in a relationship with, whatever it may be, because it hasn't happened yet. Well, what got you here is not going to take you there. You may have heard of that. So how else is a new future created if it isn't first imagined into fact? And so the same is required of you in creating upgrades in any area of your life. And you might be thinking, well, so what are the beliefs? I get struck and I struggle with beliefs. I get stuck and struggle with my mind, my operating system that struggles to conceive and therefore believe that what I want is possible. So I look for evidence and I go back into my past. And in going back into my past, I look for proof of what is possible, when in fact you were using an old operating system and expecting new results. So you must upgrade your operating system. Your belief going into the $30 million self, what must you believe about yourself to be true in that reality? What must you believe about your world, the external world, for you to be experiencing that $30 million reality? Play the game. Consciousness is the one true reality. Reality is birthed from consciousness. Consciousness is imagination. Consciousness is I am. So if I am a $30 million net worth individual, then I am that. It's that simple. And so we often overcomplicate the process of transformation, overcomplicate the process of personal upgrade, because we want to give ourselves as many reasons why it needs to be difficult, why it needs to be hard and laborious. And that is part of the block. That's part of the old operating system that says, I need to figure everything out in order to feel safe enough, secure enough, confident enough to pursue what I want. Instead, you make the leap, the quantum leap. You make the jump at light speed, beyond light speed, through your imagination. And because we're not inserting time as an equation, as part of the equation, we're not placing time as a factor here. Because the $30 million self could be a year, it could be 10 years, it could be 5 years. It should be irrelevant if the desire you carry to experience an outcome is a true desire. And as I've said in many previous podcasts, it must be burning. You must have a burning desire to experience a result. If it's a fleeting thought or a fluting thought, if it's a fleeting thought, then it's going to come and go on a moment-to-moment whimsical sort of basis. And you're going to dismiss it as fantastical. And you're not going to give it any attention. You're going to see it like you do many other things in your reality, which is impermanent. So nothing lasts. My wealth doesn't last. My happiness doesn't last. My cash flow. So you might end up saying, well, why bother giving attention to anything? Because I'm impatient and I give no burn or extreme energy, full energy to my desires, because I'm half expecting them to not be fulfilled, because I'm looking into my past for evidence of where they haven't been fulfilled. And maybe then I externalize and I start to say, well, that's because of those people or that person, or that's because that was this time, or that's because of da-da-da-da-da. And you'll run a whole gamut of excuses. In reality, what you want is what you want. And for you to create any new experience, any new reality, be it upgraded, the same, or downgraded, requires energy and attention. And so are you consciously aware of the attention you are giving your desires? Are you leaning into them as you would lean into a lover? Are you leaning into them as you would lean into a child, your own child? Are you leaning into them as you have done so many times in putting out fires in your business or in your personal life? Lean in to your future. Because the $30 million conscious upgrade is possible, it's probable, and it has huge potential when you give it attention and when you invest energy in it. So often I'll hear, well, that might be all well and good. Now I'm stretching my consciousness. Now I'm using my imagination. Now I'm dreaming what I desire. And through right question and right action, I can now find a new alignment. And so any time that I ask how, well, what next? What should I do next? What's the how in getting there? You go back to the $30 million conscious self. Matt, what would you do in this situation? What decision would you make right now? Maybe it's no action, which is still a decision. Maybe instead of splitting hairs, it's committing to one thing. So you ask the future self not for permission, you ask the future self for guidance. And the future self vibrates as you right now. It's a bit of a head trip because, as in previous episodes, maybe way, way back down in the list about multiple timelines, how is it that you can change your reality when you change where you live, change your relationships, change your work? Something shifts. You almost jump. It's like you jump timelines. It's like you are jumping realities because you are changing your environment. So we must change the internal environment to reflect that environment, the environment that we desire in the future. And by changing the internal environment, we are upgrading the internal environment to match that of our desired future. So that's why meditation is very important. Guided visualization, moving the energy from the lower energy centers up into the heart and then teleporting them straight into the cranium, into the pineal gland. Because if you can move your energy and you train your body to move energy, then you are going from the lower form to the higher form, a lower octave to a higher octave of expression, a lower nature to a higher nature, a lower experience to a higher experience. Now, one is not better than the other. This is how we evolve. This is how we consciously upgrade our reality. We must move the currents of life through our being. And we do that through meditation. We do that through taking conscious action, aligned action in our reality. But the environment within ourself is the first and only starting point. If you rush into the field to manufacture the $30 million conscious upgrade, to effort and grind and try and hustle and push, it will find you short of your goal. You will find yourself short of your goal. Asking the same questions, why am I here? What is the next step? Get clear by giving yourself permission to expand your awareness, expand your concept of what is possible for you by using the vehicle of imagination to get there. It's the one true consciousness. It's the one I am. So I hope this has sparked some new thought, some new idea for you. As I said at the beginning, if you haven't already left a comment or a review or subscribe, then make sure you do. So from me here in your future to wherever you are right now, remember to dream that better dream. Because, repeat after me, it's all you, baby. See you in the field.